the television to see if it's coming on.
You're gonna hear a delay.
There he is, Mr. Dolan.
All right, so I've got channel 22 on. I'm not seeing the meeting yet.
I can see it, John.
You can see it?
Yeah.
All right. On channel 22.
Yep.
Yes.
You're on the right channel?
Yeah, I see it too, John.
No need for them to hear me right now.
Yep, there it is. Okay.
That's going right now.
All righty.
No, just take me off mute.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get started here.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Londonderry Town Council meeting for tonight, April 20th, 7 p.m. We are doing this via remote meeting. Let me start off with the Town Council chair notification in accordance with the right to know. As the chair of the Town Council, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with the Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this Town Council is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video and other electronic means. 1, we are utilizing Zoom webinar platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the council have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has the access to contemporaneously to this listen and necessarily participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 1-312-626-6799. When prompted, enter code 962-2164-1879, and the password is 657930. You may also watch this meeting on Londonderry Cable Access TV 22, or by going to the Zoom website and entering the same codes provided for the telephone number, the telephone dial-in number. By providing public access to the necessary information for accessing the meeting, we previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting via telephone, dial, and information as I just provided. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are any problems. If anyone has a problem, please call 603-432-1100, extension 120, or email kbrown@londonderrynh.org. Adjourning the meeting in public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have to reschedule at that time. Please note, all votes during the meeting will be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please state whether anyone is in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. So I, John Farrell, and there's no one here.
Hi, Joe Green, no one's here.
I, Tom Dolan, I'm alone.
I, Jim Butler, I'm alone.
I, Deb Paul. Chris Paul's with me.
Okay, so let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
United States Republic, for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for
and
all.
justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to open the comment. First open to public comment. Is there anyone who wants to address the council under public comment? Has anyone asked to address the council?
John, if anyone calling in by phone would like to address the council, they can press *9, and that will alert us that they'd like to raise their hand and talk. Those watching on video can use the raise your hand feature.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to start off with a couple of housekeeping things. One is I want to report that I'm happy to report that the relationship with the school board chairman is vastly different than it has been in the past. Mike Saucier and I are speaking on a very regular basis, sometimes 3 to 4 times a week. The relationship overall with the schools and the school boards has dramatically changed. We've been able to work through a number of issues over the last month. The staff at the school staff and the town staff are working closely together. And it seems that sometimes some good things come out of a crisis, that everybody is working together. So it's nice to see that we're back to where we were a couple of years ago when we had a really nice relationship. That's first thing to report. The second thing is I just want to bring to everybody's attention, you did receive an email today with regards to a 91A request. Do understand that when we have a 91A request, during the emergency orders time, the time period has been lifted on it, but when we receive a 91A request with no time frames on it, where it requires us to go back 10 to 12 years, these things get very costly. And this one will probably cost anywhere between $500 and $1,000, $2,000 by the time all the research is done. So keep in mind, when we do receive 91A requests, they are not free. We do pay for those. And you all received that email today, so please try to go through your emails and respond to the request accordingly. Anything else before I move to a public hearing? All right, I'd like to have a motion to open public hearing for resolution 2020-03. It's a resolution relative to the town Londonderry Family Medical Leave and Absence Policy. Can I have a motion, please?
Move.
So Joe Green has motion to open the public hearing. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Jim Butler has second. I need a roll call vote. I, John Farrell,
Aye,
vote
Joe
in the
Green.
affirmative.
Affirmative.
Joe Green.
I, Tom Dolan, affirmative.
I, Jim Butler, affirmative.
I, Deb Paul, affirmative.
Public hearing is now open. Lisa, you're presenting.
My apologies. So this policy that you have in front of you was prompted by the federal legislation, which was the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, which provided certain additional sick leave and paid family leave benefits to employers. And the town is one of those employers that has to comply. So this policy is in compliance with that FFCRA. And under the law is required to go into effect as of April 1st. Obviously, with regard to the timing here, we couldn't have the public hearing before then, but we are in compliance with the federal law.
Are there any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
Adopted date is X'd out. Is there a particular reason, Lisa, for that?
I'm not sure, Councilor Green, what you have in front of you exactly. I just have my copy. It may just be that we didn't input the date yet because we needed to have the public hearing. I'm assuming that's what it was. But it became effective on February 1st. I see Kirby nodding, so that must be what happened there.
Okay, my copy has first reading 4/6, hearing second reading 4/20, and adopted XX/XX20. So I just wanted to call note to that. We'll have to adjust it.
Assuming the vote is in the affirmative tonight, it will then say 4/20/20.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the council before I go to the public? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone who has any questions with regards to resolution 2020-03?
John, you may want to just unmute them one by one, maybe just to make sure. You want me to take care of that for you?
I don't have everybody, I don't see any additional people that I need to unmute.
So if you go to the attendees, there's 3 callers.
I have my participants, my attendees.
Yep.
Phone number ending in 653. Do you have any public comment? No?
I do not. I do not.
Phone number ending in 017. Do you have any public comment?
This is Tom Butler, 5 Danbury Court. No.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
I think that's everybody.
You can ask Chad.
I'm trying to turn his mic on.
Thank you.
Nope,
Right,
I
you
guess
should-
not. I think he keeps muting himself, so.
That's
I'm
fine.
all good, thank you.
All right. All right, seeing no further comment, I'll take a vote to approve. Roll call vote. I, John Farrell, vote in the affirmative.
I, Joe Green, vote in the affirmative.
I, Tom Dolan, affirmative.
I, Deb Paul, affirmative.
All right, so who keeps muting Jim Butler?
I don't know, but
Jim, you've got yourself muted.
John, point of order?
Okay, here a point of order.
Yeah, John, are we supposed to take a motion first before we vote?
So make a motion.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2020-03.
I need a
second.
second, please.
Second.
I have a second. All right, once again, sorry about that. Roll call vote. I, John Farrell, vote in the affirmative.
I, Joe Green, vote in the affirmative.
I, Tom Dolan, affirmative.
I, Jim Butler, affirmative.
I, Deb Paul, affirmative.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion by Joe Green, a second by Jim Butler. I, John Farrell, vote to close the public hearing.
I, Joe Green, vote to close the public hearing.
I, Tom Dolan, vote to close the public hearing.
I, Jim Butler, vote to close the public hearing.
I, Deb Paul, vote to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, so I'm going to move from here to old business and move to town council goals and discussion. I'm going to try to pick up where we were last time. Bear with me a moment here. I believe the last time we were talking about, the last goal we were talking about was having to continue with the refresher with the town attorney, to have them come in and meet with us and remind us of our duties of non-public and non-meeting events, and to walk through that process with us. I believe that's as far as we got before we were so rudely interrupted. Tom, do you want to pick up from there since you were speaking last?
Yeah, I think just so no one is, and especially you, Deb, that you don't feel this is pointed to you. This is something, we haven't had a change in the council for 3 years. So this is entirely appropriate for all of us to go through again. And the number 3 goal, let me go backwards for a sec, attracting 2 new business opportunities. This is something that we would typically add to, the chairman would add to the manager's objectives. And that's how we would achieve our goal is setting the objective with the manager. So that's what the intent on number 3 was.
Okay, and you want to go to number 1 or number 2? Obviously, we need to present the future pandemic plan, which I I think everyone in the country will be working on.
Right, I think Darren has been, our fire chief has been doing a great job in together with Chief Hart. So I think we just need to almost take a picture of what they've been doing and kind of capture that as our plan in the future. Whoever, somewhere down the road, hopefully this doesn't happen again for a very long time, but we will be able to pull it out of the files and use it as a framework for the next time we have to do this. And the second goal was came to me during the election. This is the first time I've ever seen it in all my years on the council, that the public voted down the warrant article for the maintenance trust, expendable maintenance trust. I have to believe that's because they didn't understand what that maintenance trust is used for. But the fact that it's almost $200,000 of what we were counting on to maintain our public buildings and maintain things like the senior center. For example, the fixes that are happening with the senior center is drawn out of that account. I know we're going to talk to this later on in our agenda, but without that money, you can't do any fixes to the senior center. You can't, if the air conditioner breaks in the police station, you can't fix it. Or if there's a roof leak in the town hall, you can't fix it. So this is a pretty serious turn of events. So I think it's something we're going to have to look at, and I hope Kevin has put some thought into this, because I think this is a pretty serious issue that we're going to have to resolve.
Okay. So, does anyone have any questions for Tom? Alrighty. So the way this works is we're going to go through these, and then we're probably going to pick 3 or 4 that we're going to focus on. Does anybody want to go next? Volunteer,
John,
or you just want me to pick?
I can go next, Tim.
Joe? Okay, go ahead, Joe.
So I had a few here that to pick from. I thought it would be a good idea to get out to the public a little bit more. There was some town councils many years ago that used to do a coffee with a counselor where they would pick different places, and it could rotate. Doesn't have to be me all the time. It could be maybe picked by you as the chairperson, and we can put a schedule together. We can go out instead of having people come in the council chamber. We could actually go out and have some people come and see us and just talk with us, and maybe a less careful looking up at the 5 of us kind of elevated on that pulpit, if you will, but it's a kind of face-to-face and in a nice, calm setting. So,
Okay.
that was number 1. You want me to take them one by one, or?
Sure, that'd be great. I mean, if anybody has any questions, just please let me know.
We're providing additional services to seniors, the disabled, and the veterans. Basically, as everybody understands, this is a age group, specifically the seniors, that are continuing to grow in our town. And I want to make sure that we are providing the necessary tools that, we got a van. Yep, it's not being used yet, but certainly as the need arises, we have these tools available. So, kind of like a think tank, and I think Senior Resources Committee does a lot of this thinking for us. And I like the fact that we're going out into people's properties where they ask for help and do some yard work, some shoveling, etc. But maybe we can have an organized way of getting that accomplished, and having more of a log of people that need this type of help. And again, we have to run this through the insurance companies and all that red tape, but I think it's kind of good to start somewhere. So that's a thought. Number 3, I think we're well underway, Mr. Chairman. I think you said at the beginning, you echoed the fact that we are continuing to knock on the door across the street, and it seems like they're answering with the new folks that are there. It's a really a positive thing to see. So I'd like to see different ways, and I saw there was some other councils had the same type of goal. I'd like to see more ways that we can share some expenses maybe and actually save some dollars in the townspeople, coffers and their wallets. So again, trying to explore different ways that we can do that.
Okay.
And before leaning into defend our town against water and air quality, we know that this is something that is top of mind for the pandemic, and when things start to settle down, this is going to be a topic again that we have to continue to focus on and continue to make sure that we are monitoring air quality. So I thought that was a good one to get to have in there. And last one is protecting our open spaces. Some questions back and forth about recreational areas, especially with the schools, and whether or not we were, going to get charged for it on the town side, or it really doesn't matter. It's one wallet. We just have to make sure that we have a really safe place that's well maintained for our children to play and recreate, and for our adults to be able to get exercise. And I think that the people that are in town deserve that from our municipality. So just something to throw out there.
Perfect. Any questions for Joe? Okay, I'll just keep going down the list here. Deb, do you want to go next?
Sure. My first item on the list was to work representing the taxpayers of this town a little bit more. To echo what Joe said, I think that we need to meet with the public more and speak with them on a more comfortable platform. And obviously we don't want to have a quorum, so it should just be like one, maybe two counselors, the max. It can rotate through, but I think that we need to listen to what people have to say and what they want to see in their town, and how they would like to see money spent. So that was the first one. The second one was to work to keep businesses, the town's business, before the council and being more transparent. And that would mean having more public discussions about things that are going on at town council decisions, such as invoices. When Mr. Cotton comes with things, it would be nice to know what's coming before we're signing something, before we had approved it, things like that. Maybe things just out there, like we were just talking recently with the non-public public meetings. That's something that could be talked about publicly so people can understand what's actually going on and what is allowed and isn't allowed. I know that Tom mentioned the maintenance trust fund. Maybe people voted it down isn't because they don't understand it. It's because they feel like we're just spending after getting hit with their increase in taxes, that they're getting hit, and they want to make sure that things are being spent properly, which I don't think there should be a problem if everybody is following the policies and procedures, which is also number 4 on my list. The policies and procedures of this town were put in place to be followed, and I feel that we need to stick to those policies and procedures. And if we don't like them and we want to change them, we have to do it the right way to the charter, and so that it is done correctly. The other thing is town. I also talked about the water issue. I think now's the time to work on it, when we do have downtime, to really start looking at it. I think that we should think about regaining our water from Pennachuck and doing it a little bit differently. And I think there are many, many things that we could look at, different avenues that could be brought out. Maybe we put together a task force to discuss plans for Londonderry's water in the future, because this is going to be critical. Really, to be honest, in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to need to put in city or town water for pretty much everyone, with leach fields leaking, houses becoming closer together, and contaminants. This is going to be a huge issue, and we need to have a plan in place so that we can take action, so that we're not sitting there going, oh gosh, we don't have a plan to move this forward. It's better to plan and not have to use it than to have nothing and go into panic mode. That's my feeling on the water. And the last thing that I had was to to work better with the school and council. And one of the things that was brought up at a couple of meet and greets with Amy and Mr. Slater from the school was that maybe at those council or meet and greets, there is one representative from the town and one from the school in a casual atmosphere, having conversation with residents and bringing that information to the boards to discuss publicly. And that's it.
Do we have any questions for Deb?
Yeah, hey, John, Jim
Yes.
Butler. Under the Londonderry Municipal Code, Title 6, Town Policy, Section 4, Purchasing Procedure, I think there needs to be some clarification there, because if things are budgeted and it's under $100,000, it's the town manager that's signing off on that. Anything that's over that, it has to be a town council vote. And maybe that needs to be clarified. But some of the things that are brought up under normal maintenance is probably coming under a budgeted item. And therefore, the council doesn't need to vote to approve it. It's the town manager that approves it. I think we are only doing that as record. I could be wrong, but maybe that needs to be clarified.
Yeah, I did ask as part of the town manager's review, and I did speak to Justin, and I know he's working on an update to the purchasing policy. Some of the things you have to keep in mind is things like, we'll buy $50,000 worth of salt at one time. But that's something that's already budgeted for the winter and things along those lines. But I have asked Justin to update the policy since it has been a number of years since it's been touched.
Good. Okay. For the
John-
most, go ahead. Deb?
Are you sure that it's 100,000? I thought it was 10,000. And when we update those policies, shouldn't that be a discussion publicly, or is this all done privately?
Well, I think that's the reason why there seems to be some confusion. And I think that with what John's doing, I think should clear it up.
So what happens is Justin will develop a policy. He'll bring it to the board and to the council, and he'll say, okay, this is what I'm thinking. He says, and we discuss that in public. And we talk about, the different pieces of it. We ask him questions. We ask him why he thinks it should be like that, why certain decisions should be like that. He'll have he'll have data or backup information about why this is done or how other towns do it. Generally, we try to compare ourselves to our peers to see if we can learn from them and as they do from us. And that's generally how when those policies change, the policy board changes the policy in public.
And will public input also be welcomed at these changes?
Generally, the past practice has been is that, and I believe you probably have seen this, is if someone turns up to ask a question, I don't think I can ever remember denying somebody being able to ask a question.
I just kind of wanted to make sure that people could put in input if they had something or knew something or felt a certain way about things, had the ability to address us, that's all.
Yep, always.
Oh, John, this is Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Let's remember that the town fathers, in terms of the charter, the reason the current charter was put together the way it was is because there was a belief that there was too much political input to decisions running the town, buying things, purchasing and so forth. So that the town charter was written so that for the elected official to take a step back and to have less input, and so that we have a town manager that's entrusted with those powers, so that the elected officials are not in a position where they can exert political influence over certain decisions, especially procurement decisions. So let's be mindful of that we came from a period of history in the 70s and 80s that gave birth to our new town charter in the 90s. That in that history, we had some, let's say, questionable decisions that were made that weren't that had I would say undue influence from the elected members of the board. And I won't go any further than that to impugn anybody, but let's not. I would suggest that we don't take a step backwards. That we want to continue to rely on the professional town manager to make those decisions free from political influence, and that we always have the power to influence the town manager and hire and fire a town manager, but for us to be getting involved in some of the decisions of running the town from day to day, and especially making purchasing decisions, I think we need to be careful with that. So just putting that into historical perspective, because we did have a problem with that, or the town had a problem with that in the 70s and 80s, and we put together a new town charter to try to divorce our elected officials from getting involved in those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, like all town policies, the policy will be reviewed by the attorney to make sure we don't conflict with the charter. But Justin, you're working on that, I believe, right? Yes?
That is correct. I have several different towns that I'm looking at to try and get a basis for how we can improve our current policy and do what's best for the taxpayers based on our current policy and what's happening around us. The last time it was updated, I believe, was 2011, which the town has grown quite a bit since then. So I feel as though some of it is a little bit not accurate for our current town size.
Okay. All right, well, that's good.
I have a question, John.
Yes, please.
So if we trust the town manager to do these things, no offense, Kevin Smith, who is watching Kevin? What is the chain of command? And who is making sure that, in fact, because it may not be Kevin someday, maybe somebody else, where are the check and balance that goes on there if it's not the council? A group of people? Is it just going to be Justin and Kevin, or is it going to be other people? I think there needs to be a balance there. It can't be just on the soul of one person. I'm sorry. I just feel that there needs to be that.
Justin, can you please speak to our audit procedures?
Absolutely. So currently, we're actually in the middle of our preliminary audit. And the auditors come in, they ask for random.
Right, but you don't do a forensic audit, and so there's ways to hide things, correct?
Deb,
There's no forensic zero audit. But I mean, I understand what he's saying about an audit.
So you're correct. There is not a
All right.
forensic audit, as that would cost quite a bit of money on a yearly basis. But they come in.
There is no check and balance.
All right, let's all stop talking. Let Justin answer the question, please. Justin, please go ahead and answer the question.
So as for checks and balance, each department is responsible for their individual department's budget. At that point, I oversee those to make sure that it's being properly, that we're staying within the budget. And Kevin will then oversee that to make sure. At that point, should there be any differences, if you look online right now, there is currently the expenditures for the past 2016 through 2020 to show where each department currently is in relation to their budget.
Now, Justin, there's also the auditor also interviews the chairman of the town council and the councilors if they decide to.
Correct.
So there is the opportunity for the council. We also have the audit reviewed with us. So basically the penalty, since the police chief is here, the penalty for someone who is doing something that is illegal, would be that they would be dealt with at that time. I think if we go in and we look at the steps that we go through and all of the sign-offs that are required to be able to come to the town manager, there's quite a lot of visibility across each expenditure. Is that true, Justin?
I would agree with that.
So the checks and balances start from the bottom and come all the way up. Is that the way that you're structured?
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to Justin, please. Thank you.
So
Okay.
by the bottom, if you mean the department, yes.
So the request comes in from the department, comes through the budget. So if Llanos wants to buy salt, Tell me what happens.
So if Giannis wants to buy salt, he has to determine the vendor that he's buying it with. He then files a purchasing order, which then goes through our AP department, which then gets sent to me for approval and then gets sent to Kevin for approval.
So 4 to 5 people touch it before it goes to the town manager.
3, yes. 4,
Okay.
you're right, because typically the department secretary will touch it as well.
So we can go through this again when we come back to public meetings so that, we can do it in a little bit more detail so the public understands how we expend money. But I believe some of the right steps are in place for the time being. We can certainly put it down as a goal to be able to present in public how we allocate money and how we do purchase orders when we do the purchasing policy. Would that be okay?
That's fine, but I think it needs to go a step further. In most big companies with millions of dollars in budget, like the town and the school for that matter, they should be doing once every 7 years a forensic audit to find the fluff of the fluff of the fluff. For an example, just recently we had the police station get a new sign. It was taken out of the police budget. So that meant he had an extra $11,000 sitting in his budget for that sign. That should have been a maintenance thing. It wasn't, or a CIP thing. It shouldn't have been in operations in his budget. So I think there are little things that need to be tweaked. And sometimes it's those little things that where you can find monies at. And in this economic time and what's coming down the pike with people maybe not being able to pay taxes, not having an income, this is going to be very important that we tighten our wallets. And, to me, every department, every 5 to 7 years should zero out their budget and justify what's in there and why they need it. But that's me. And I am just one voice of all of you guys. And I know it's a lot of work, but once it's done, it's done. And why I say 5 to 7 years, so at least you can hold somebody accountable for putting stuff in the budget that really wasn't necessary.
So Chief Hart, we had a forensic audit in 2014 and 2015.
That's correct.
How much did that forensic audit cost? Do you remember?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall, but it was in the thousands.
It was in the 6 figures, thousands?
It came close.
So it was almost $100,000.
So the regular budget is $10,000.
Excuse me.
I-
Almost $100,000, and we did it 5 years ago. And that's when we changed a lot of our policies, right?
It was before. It was longer ago than 5 years. It was in the wake of the impact fee debacle, and we did more than one audit at that time. There was several layered audits that drilled way down into the expenditures at that time, and yes, it approached 6 figures.
So just so we understand for clarification purposes, the CIP is for projects that are over $1 million. So if in the example of the one that was just used with regards to the police sign, my understanding is that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I was just told recently that we had someone who was in danger and couldn't find the police station, and that prompted someone to look into being able to make the police station more visible. Was that the purpose of it?
It wasn't a single situation. Over the 15 years that we've been in the new building, we've had chronic situations where a person looking for the police department in sometimes emergency situations, but as frequently not emergency situations, couldn't find it. And we had recently at least one situation within the last year that I'm aware of that the person was being threatened by handgun, could not find the police department. Now, admittedly, part of that was the fact that they were in a stressful situation. But the fact of the matter was, in that emergency situation, they couldn't find it. It's been on our radar for, probably 5 to 7 years to make the police department more visible. You may recall that one of the things we did was we changed the lighting out front to those blue lights. We also put up lighting on the department. It still didn't make the sign visible enough for people to see. And we were grateful when the chief's design came along, and we thought, you know what, let's mirror that and make it a very visible place. We've gotten a lot of compliments on it since then, and let me take one further step. This is the kind of thing that we look at and plan for through the year, depending on what our surplus is going to be. I'm pleased to say that much like Chief Ryan before me and Chief Bannon before him, we've never, except for the 2007 year in which we took on the airport, did anything but turn back a surplus over the last 37 years. So this is part of how we've appropriately and prudently manage our budget every single year.
Okay, so Justin, as part of your purchasing policy piece, can you
I'm
please,
glad you did the
follow-
sign.
Yeah, so can you please follow this particular one, walk the council through it, and so as part of your purchasing policy presentation?
Absolutely. This one's a little bit different, but for the most part, it's the same.
Okay, that'd be great.
The fire department, as we all know, is currently in the middle of building Central Fire. They went out and they got, rather than the 3 bids that's required for it, I believe they got 4. And at that point, the police station,
That's not true.
what is not true?
Well, according to Cheatham, he told me the fire department got 2 and the police department got 2, and I have that in writing. And this is why I'm going to go back to discussions being done publicly. I got like 7 phone calls about this. Not that I really care that it happened. It's the fact is the way it happened. So people then get distrusting. Whether there's nothing there or not isn't the issue. But then what I was told is they ended up counting as 4 because one of them was the same for both fire and police. And maybe if this was brought out publicly that we were having troubles, the fire department, we could have bought them together and saved a few dollars, but who knows? Just
Hey,
saying.
John,
Can I chime
Yes,
in here?
please, yeah, yes, please proceed.
So for the fire department, we had KC signs, NH signs, Sousa signs, and Welch signs.
That is
Well, then
correct, Kevin.
Mr. Cheatham misspoke, gave me a written response email to respond to the public with.
So I apologize for that. Going forward, when talking
Okay.
about financial matters, I recommend talking with Meg.
Well, I sent it to Mr. Smith, and Mr. Smith sent it to the appropriate people, and I got the response from Mr. Cheatham, and so I shared that response as I asked if I could with those people. And so that's what was said. So now I don't like looking like a liar, so I feel uncomfortable about that now.
John, if I could say a few things here. First off,
Please proceed.
if the council would like to pay me $120,000 to order toilet paper and thumbtacks, and you can order the rest, proceed. In all seriousness, just a couple of things. One is the expendable maintenance trust purchases that come up. The reason why you typically vote on those after they've already been purchased is because oftentimes you can't grind government to a halt waiting on the town council to approve purchases like winter maintenance cleanup. If we have a snowstorm, we can't wait 2 weeks for the town council to approve to have the parking lots plowed and shoveled. So that's why you're getting it after the fact. And oftentimes you'll see that those purchases have been made for reasons such as that. Again, it would grind government to a halt and prevent things from getting done that need to get done fairly quickly. This has been vetted and approved by Attorney Ramsdell. And so that's why that's done that way.
It's also done in accordance with the charter.
It is.
The sign
also
for
done, yes.
16 years, so.
Please, I would ask that everyone let everyone else finish what they're saying. Happy to let the next person speak, but please don't interrupt somebody when they're speaking.
And again, I would just say that with regards to things like the sign purchase for the police station, this is an operational decision that falls under the charter of the purview of the town manager. We did do the proper purchasing policy with the sign, having, as Justin noted, now 6 quotes for that sign. And so it followed all the procedures and also went along with the guidance of the town charter. And I would state again, if the council doesn't like the fact of what the purchasing policy limits are within the operating budget under the town charter, well, then they should pass an ordinance fixing that. Though I would hearken to what Councilor Dolan said earlier, which is one, what do you hire a town manager for? And two, how often do you want to grind government to a halt because we're waiting on purchases from the operating budget that was approved by the voters to be made? So those are the comments that I have on those items. I do have another question though, just so I'm understanding correctly. It was stated by Councilor Paul on one of the goals that we need to get our water back from Pennachuck. Could you explain what that means?
All right, hold off for just 1 second on that question. I have Captain Cheatham's email. The question was, if required, were all current town purchasing policies followed? And his response was, yes, we solicited 2 quotes on our end. We held off on the third because the vendor we chose, which was the same as the fire department used, was less expensive than the 2 they had. They could also confirm that the signage would match the Londonderry Fire Department and keep it uniform. That vendor was the lowest of the 3 quotes the fire department received, putting in their signage. So we had a total of 4 quotes, which is more than the purchasing policy of 3. So that's how he responded.
How is it
I have that-
when 2 are the same?
So that I'll be happy to forward that email out. But anyway, that takes care of. Let's move off of I think we've had enough conversation about the town council, about the the police department sign. And we can cover all that under the purchasing policy. With regards to council goals, let's get back to if there's the next one was the water issue. So Kevin, please proceed with that question now.
My question is Deb had made the comment about getting our water back from Pennachuck, and I wasn't understanding that, so I'm asking for clarification.
Well, I was under the assumption from the utilities up in Concord that Pennachuck had the rights to Londonderry water and that the town did not have any rights to its own water. That's the way they explained it to me up in Concord. Because I was looking at what Derry had done, and they had put in their own water department, similar to, the sewer water, where it's sewer department, where it's self-funding, and people pay us to run the water, which they do to Pennachuck now. So that is why I said what I said.
So, Janos, you're on the line, right? Is Janos on mute or is he open?
Yeah, you have to unmute him.
No, he should be open.
So Janos, my understanding is that we don't have a source for water in town and that all wells are privately owned. Could you elaborate on that, please? Janos? Can you hear me,
Microphone is
Janos?
open, but it may not be working.
So we can take that for another time, but that's what Janos has explained to me in the past. So we can take that question up at another time.
I understand we're under town well, but as people start getting onto public water, the town does not have the ability to bring that in-house and do it itself as wells start to turn on to public water. Obviously, we don't have control over people's wells, but people who are buying water from Pennachuck could technically be buying that water from us, like the sewer, and we could be making a profit off of it, since you would buy the water from Manchester Water at 10 cents on the gallon and turn around and sell it to Londonderry residents for more than what it costs to operate, which is what Pennachuck does, and I assume we get a piece of that. But that's what I was trying to find out from the public utilities when they told me that Londonderry didn't have control over water. So I just wanted to clarify. I understood about wells.
So at a future date, we can put it as an agenda item, have Janos come in and explain how the sewer system works and how the water system works. Tom Dolan sits on the board, sits as the liaison to the board to Penachuk, and we can ask Penachuk to come in, but we'll put that as a future item on the agenda.
Okay.
Kirby, make sure I don't forget that, please. Okay, any further questions for Deb before I move on to Jim? Jim, so do you want to step through your pieces here?
Yeah, real quick. Number one was communication with the school district. I'm pleased to hear that with the new school board that, the communications has been opened up. Maybe we should have a meeting, a joint meeting with them, maybe once a month or once a quarter. As far as work towards better control of taxes, Joe pretty much covered it on number 3. One of the cases that I can remember is that I believe that we had approached the school district concerning taking a look at our healthcare benefits. And I believe we were under the impression that collectively we could have saved the taxpayers money. Those are the type of things that we need to look at and we need to have an open mind about. The other thing, and number 3, is a better understanding both for the citizens and the local governments of the anticipated revenue that the town has coming in. For instance, you can project Woodmont. Woodmont right now, their total taxes could be, say, $5 million. But right now, we're only showing revenue of, say, $1 million because there hasn't been a change or use in that. We have fiscal analysis reports that I think that we should pay more attention to. Those reports indicate what the school side thinks that they need coming out of a project, what the town side needs to get coming out of a project, and what the county does. And I think that we have to better utilize these tools so we have a better understanding of what we can anticipate for revenues. So when town governments come to us and say, well, look, I want to build a new building. The money isn't there. The revenues aren't coming in. So it becomes a real quagmire. So I think that that's something that we should take a look at.
Okay. All right. So let's see what I've captured here is that, and see if I've captured the top 4 and tell me if I've captured them correctly. One is coffee. I'll call it coffee with the counselor to come up with a rotation to be and possibly working with a school board member at the same time to be more visible in public, whether that be on a monthly or weekly basis. We can determine that going forward. The second one I have is water and air quality to as a goal to be able to get our arms around a plan around water and air quality and to use the time effectively now. The third one is to continue the economic development goals of the town. And the last one I have is something that actually Justin and Kevin have been working on for the last month, is to have a much greater understanding of our revenue stream and what that means going out into the future, and probably a presentation of who our top taxpayers are and how we measure revenue in the town. Does that sound like 4 good ones?
Yep.
Everybody good? I just need a consensus.
Jim Butler, yes.
Tom, you good?
John, were you summarizing the goals?
I was just summarizing what I heard you guys say were the top 4.
Okay, I wasn't sure whether you were enumerating your personal goals or a summary for everybody.
Yeah, generally what we've done in the past is the chair steps aside and lets the yields to the council.
Yeah, I'm good.
Chairman, I think that this is one that I really feel strongly about. And I think that we already do it anyway, and maybe it doesn't need to be a goal, but the collaboration that I think that at least three of us, I think maybe four, three of us are talking about school committee with the town council and working collaboratively to reduce costs possibly, or work together to combine different connections to different vendors, et cetera, to be able to save costs. I think that's a big one too. I mean, I'm not trying to extend it to 5, but I mean, that's definitely a consistent one amongst all the councils.
Yeah, I think things will evolve with the school here over the year. So I actually, Mike and I are already have agreed to meet once a month and everything. So I think that's I think that will evolve and I also think it's if the school board is joining you with Coffee with the Counselor, maybe some good relationships will come out of that. But until we can go back and have a public meeting and have a joint meeting with them, we can, who knows when that will be at this point. So I think the revenue breakdown, fiscal analysis and everything covers the purchasing policy piece. The economic development is about revenue as well. Water and air quality, Coffee with the Counselor. So we'll start there. I'll have Kirby write those up for the next meeting, and then we can finalize them or add or delete. Okay. So, all right, let's move on to the next item. If there's no objection. Okay. I'm going to move on to new business. Order 202008, an order relative to the distribution of equipment from the Capital Reserve Fund. Chief O'Brien.
Good evening, everyone. This is just a request for withdrawal from the Capital Reserve Fund for firefighters' bunker gear, so the PPE. This is the turnout pants, turnout coat. It's being purchased from Globe Manufacturing in Pittsfield, New Hampshire. Once every probably 3 years, we have a gear committee that will go out and look at all the different gear. And this past year, they did the same thing again. And Globe is still probably the Cadillac in the industry, and it's right here in New Hampshire. So we are going to continue to purchase with them. And this request is for, I believe, 10 sets of gear. I'm sorry, I don't have it right here in front of me, but I believe it's for 10 sets of gear for some of the newer firefighters. And what we are right now is we're on a replacement schedule that we replace everybody's gear every 10 years. So we've been trying to draw out a plan here now where it's not overlapping. So once they get a new set of gear, their other secondary gear is still within like 5 years of service time. So we're just about there right now. And I think with the next 2 purchases that are going to be made, we will be on that schedule. So that's what that request is for. And
Does anyone have any questions for the chief?
Well, it might be good just because we're talking about purchase policy, that some of us could understand why there's only one place that you went to for this particular purchase.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, Joe, with the gear committee, we had, I think, probably 3 or 4 different vendors that came in for gear manufacturing. And again, none of them compared with the durability, the protectiveness that they offered. And again, being in the state of New Hampshire, and it's what we've had now for, I'm going to say probably the last at least 15 years, is Globe Gear out of Pittsfield, New Hampshire. And it's been a good product for us.
Thank you.
So you feel that that's through our several years that we feel that they make the safest and best gear for our people?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other further questions for the chief? Okay, if I haven't heard anything else, I'll accept a motion to approve order 2020-08.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion from Joe Green.
Second.
Who was the second, please?
Jim Butler.
Jim Butler was the second. I'll take a roll call vote. I, John Farrell, vote yes.
I, Joe Green, vote affirmative.
I, Tom Dolan, yes.
I, Jim Butler, yes.
I, Deb Paul, yes.
Thank you. Order 2020-08 passes 5-0.
Thank you.
I have order 2020-09, an order relative to the expenditure of maintenance trust for various projects. Steve Cotton.
Yes, tonight we have 2 items. Hopefully the last of the winter maintenance for this season for $675. And then we had a defective gas stove, or the gas stove at North Fire Station. We're splitting the cost between the maintenance trust and Darren's operating budget for a new stove at the North Fire Station for a total of $1,849.99.
Do we have any questions for Steve with regards to expendable maintenance trust?
I do.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Steve, just because I'm new, I just want to understand. It says here that it's a 50-50 split between the expendable maintenance and the Londonderry Fire Department fund budget, because the stove was actually $2,300, which was probably a little bit less than what it goes for at Home Depot. And this was for North Fire Station, correct?
That's correct, Deb. North Fire Station.
So I just was wondering why it was 50-50, because it's kind of confusing as to what the total dollar amount is that we're spending on the stove.
I can answer that, Steve, if you'd like me to.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Darren.
So what we're finding, Deb, now is, again, this was a stove. The station was built in 2010. We've done repairs over the last probably 3 years, and it just got to a point where it wasn't worth repairing anymore. So my facilities maintenance division went out and looked for a stove that would suit the needs of the individuals up there. And this is what we found. Steve agreed to pay for half of the budget only because of the situation that we're currently in right now with the COVID-19 virus and everything that's going on. Is my budget is going to be suffering at the end of the year, I'm sure. Just between the staffing and the PPE and everything else that we're ordered. So it's just basically helping out us along the way.
I just didn't understand why it wasn't like made a little clearer. That's all. And why it was from 2 spots.
I think it's quite clear, 50-50.
All righty.
John, I have a comment?
You know, that's okay. I mean, you know, Deb's new. Let's understand, and let's just, you know, got to take the extra steps and answer the questions.
John, I have a comment.
Tom,
this is Tom. This is going back to what I said earlier during the goal setting. I have to disagree with you, Deb. I think that the people voted expendable maintenance trust down because they didn't understand it. If without the expendable maintenance trust, if you look at what the first item here is, winter maintenance, plowing, salting, and shoveling. If without a wave to replace that for next winter, we won't be able to plow our lots, salt the walkways, or shovel any expend any money to do any shoveling when we have a snowstorm with zero maintenance trust available. Also, in this particular case, we wouldn't be able to replace that stove if we had no maintenance trust, and they'd have to go without a stove for a year. I don't see how the public could understandably spend millions of dollars on our facilities and then tell us we don't want you to maintain them and we don't want you to provide access to those facilities in the wintertime and not plow your driveways and not shovel the walkways. So that's to me that is a lack of understanding that I think we need to take responsibility for and better explain it to the public next time.
So I just want to ask you a question, Tom, just so I understand. So isn't in every, and I'm fine with the fire department getting a stove. I understand that. And this is an exceptional year. And if it hadn't been an exceptional year, he would have been able to get it out of his own funds. What I'm trying to understand is, how do I explain this correctly? things like the plowing and the salt and all of that, isn't that built into the road maintenance budget? Like, don't they budget for that every year? Is this money above and beyond what's already in the budget in this maintenance fund, or is this additional to?
So
No, Kevin, why don't you take
answer
that?
that?
I'm sorry. Well, Steve Cotton can answer, but Deb, we actually had these discussions during the budget presentations this past budget year, actually. These are maintenance items that are not budgeted in anyone's budget in the operating budget. So things like winter maintenance, things like winter maintenance are not in anyone's operating budget. Things like repairs to roofs. When the library had the water main break and flooded part of the library, those items are not included in the library's operating budget. So that's why we have the expendable maintenance trust, is to keep up with the maintenance items on the buildings when things happen to the building. I mean, things deteriorate over time, and these are things that are not.
I understand.
These are things that are not built into the department's budgets.
So we spend whatever is in that expendable maintenance trust completely, for the most part, every year. And so therefore we have to refill it. There's no.
No, we don't spend it. We don't spend it every year. Well, we come close to spending most of it, but usually there's a small surplus in it and it varies from year to year, depending on what items there's items we're anticipating that we need to fix that we know are deteriorating. And then there's things like when that water main broke in the library, we weren't planning on that, but that had to come out of it. So, when we get a little bit on further into the agenda, I'll go over what the current balance is in that fund, what things we know about that are coming up, and how we're just going to have to prioritize certain items, and some things just aren't going to get fixed.
So, for example,
I just want to have a better understanding of it, so be patient.
So, for example, what will happen now, since the expendable maintenance trust did not pass, we're going to take money from someplace else to do the plowing, to do the salting, and if we have an emergency where we have to repair a roof or something along those lines, we'll have to take the money from someplace else, and something else will not happen. Now, what that may or may not happen. So, it's much like when it's much like when your car breaks down. You don't expect it sometime. But
John,
you do know you have to get brakes every 50,000 miles, and you have to buy tires. So,
John,
let's, does everyone, so to answer your question, Deb, though, the plowing and everything is done by Public Works out on the streets. The school pays either a contractor or the custodians or a separate person to do all their lots. We pay someone else to do our lots because we have, Janos will remind me someday, 70 some odd miles of roads that we have a 3-hour cycle on that we have to clear for the townspeople. So they're out on those roads. So I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you.
Okay. So, all right. So I have, anybody have any further questions for Steve? I'll accept the motion to approve Order 2020-09.
So move, Mr. Chairman. Council Green.
Second, Council Butler.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, John Farrell.
Aye, Joe Green. Yes.
Aye, Tom Dolan.
Aye, Jim Butler.
Aye, Deb Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Orders approved 5-0. All right, let's move on. Approval of minutes. So has anyone reviewed or wants to make any changes to the minutes that are presented in our packet for March 16th and April 6th? If you don't have any changes, I'll accept the motion to approve both at the same time.
So move, Mr. Chairman. Joe Green.
Second,
Tom Dolan.
All right, I'll approve minutes for April 6th and 16th. Aye, John Farrell.
Aye, Joe Green.
Aye, Tom Dolan.
Aye, Jim Butler.
Aye, Deb Paul.
Thank you. We have no appointments, reappointments tonight. I'm hoping to be able to get to those, if there are any here in the near future, where it's a little bit, hopefully we'll be able to get back in public and be able to do those so that we can interview the candidates properly. Liaison reports. Do I have anything new from anyone from the liaisons, either they've attended or any information they'd like to share? And that'd be anyone.
I went to all three of my liaisons. I do want to say that I believe the liaison assignment is a little off balance, but it is what it is, and I will take my assignments. ZBA had a heavy board, and their meeting went off without any glitches, and it went pretty late. Conservation had some interesting things coming in the pike, lots to do with water, putting together a plan. And the planning board was canceled and moved to, I believe it's this Wednesday. And they also have a full agenda. And I did not have a Beautify Londonderry meeting.
Any of the others have anything to report on liaisons? Yeah, Deb, you basically took over Ted's liaisons, and generally the person who comes on who's new generally gets the land use boards because it is the best place to learn, and it's really where most of the action in the town happens. I sat there, Joe, everybody got their chance in the hopper to sit there. So
I get it. It's fine. I have trouble with the Tuesday night meetings, obviously, because of work, but the Conservation Commission and myself have worked something out. I just, it's just a very heavy weight load. That's all. And I'll do it. It's no problem.
You're certainly open to approach one of the other counselors and make a trade.
Oh, that's fine.
So, all right, well, thank you. All right, so I have a town manager report, please.
So I have a few items tonight that I want to bring the council up to speed on that I was planning to address at the last meeting before it got interrupted. The first is I'd like to, I'm going to switch these updates here and start with the failed warrant article items from the March ballot, just to let you know what it means in terms of planning for the future on these various items. We've talked a lot tonight about the expendable maintenance trust fund. As of March 11th, we had $161,000 balance in that fund. The replenishing, if you will, on the March ballot was for $180,000. Obviously, we won't have that now. So we have about a little under now $160,000 to last us from now until at least June 30 of 2021. We do know winter maintenance has been costing us around $50,000 a year. This was a relatively warm, snow-free winter. So I would say that that's probably on the low end. So which means we probably have around $100,000 for maintenance to get us through now until June 30 of 2021. And as John mentioned, what that means is if there's, there'll be a prioritization of items that cannot wait, that are life safety issues that have to be done now, and items that need to be done because they're deteriorating. For instance, if siding is coming down off of a building, if it's not an immediate emergency replacement, we're probably not going to do it because we want to make sure we at least have money to plan for emergencies that may happen. The other thing I want to point out too is that, you know, the Department of Revenue has been very strict about no meaning no. So we have to be careful about whether we're trying to supplement expendable maintenance trust funding from other areas when the voters voted that down. The good news is they saved 4 cents on the tax rate, which will be about $14 on a home that's $350,000. So that's the outlook right now on expendable maintenance trust fund. And again, there's probably a dozen or so planned items right now. We're not going to get to all of them, again, to keep some cash on hand for emergencies that may arise. Another item that failed was the expansion to the Pillsbury Cemetery. Right now, in the new section that's been created, it can take about 125 plots. That should last us hopefully 5 years, but it may not. In total, when the entire expansion is done, it will gain an additional 450 plots out of that. We need about $800,000 in total funds to get to that 450, and we're about 200,000 currently. So while we can get by, if you will, in the next year or two, by not putting more money into that account, at some point we are going to run out of space, and so we just need to be cognizant of that going forward. The GIS funding also failed. I believe that was in the amount of $28,000. And so again, that is for our flyovers that we do every 5 years to update our GIS mapping. This is for police, fire, DPW, planning. It touches almost assessing. It literally almost touches every department that we have at Town Hall. We're looking at alternatives without sacrificing quality, if you will. One of the suggestions that came up during the budget season was, could we use drone technology? I don't know the answer to that. Amy's looking into it. Again, GIS mapping is very different than, say, Google Earth. The detail's a lot greater. And the things we provide for the various departments is a lot more than what, say, a Google Earth would provide. So we are looking into alternatives. At the same time, it may delay the next flyover because, again, while we look for those alternatives, we don't want to sacrifice the quality of what we need there. And Tom, this may be an item too where the public maybe needs more education to know what GIS does, not only for the town departments, but for anyone. Anyone can use our GIS mapping. And I'm often taken aback at how many people don't use it or know about it. And when I show them it, they're like, wow, I didn't even know this technology existed on the town website. And so to that end, I was actually, before the COVID pandemic hit, I had Amy on the agenda to come in and give a presentation on GIS and everything that can be done with it. We're still going to do that at some point, but I'd rather it be done in person than over a virtual meeting like this. The last item that failed on the ballot was the leases for the two vehicles, the DPW vehicles. We spent $35,000 this fiscal year on repairing these two vehicles, which are for snow plowing. So they're running right now. We were going to be trading them in using that trade-in value to get the lease deal that we had negotiated. But obviously we're not going to be doing that now with it having been voted down. These vehicles are probably going to break down again. And what I've already told Janos is that I'm not going to keep throwing good money after bad money. Depending on what the cost of the repair is, if it's a minimal, we'll look at making that repair. But if it's going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars, we're just going to take that vehicle out of service, which means less snow plows on the road potentially next winter. But again, you know, the taxpayers saved a few dollars in voting it down. And so that's the, I guess, the silver lining, if you will, on that. So that's a summary of the articles that failed. Are there any questions before I move on?
Yeah, I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so I just want to do just really quickly. I'm assuming that we'll obviously always have the maintenance trust on the ballot every year, but we can probably add the expansion of the cemetery for next year those kind of just, do we have to, we'll talk about it then, of course, but I think that makes sense to continue to work on it. The GIS funding, can we take that take it out of undesignated fund balance?
We can do that, and we had been doing that. The reason why we didn't do that anymore is because it was a reoccurring expense on the warrant every year. We were trying to wean those reoccurring expenses from using the undesignated fund balance. That being said, as I said, it was $28,000, literally 0.6 of 1 cent. That's why I feel that it probably wasn't a funding issue. It was more of an educational issue on what it was. But yes, the answer is we could use fund balance on that in the future if we wanted to.
And the last thing about the DPW vehicles, I think what we got to do, and Janos is on the call, I think we have to do is probably put this back on the ballot and really make sure people understand that, you know, maybe make a poster and say, look, I mean, this is really, you're either going to have 2 vehicles on the road, making sure we're safe. It's a safety issue. That's what bothers me the most. And it goes back to the education piece. I want to make sure people understand this is about our public safety. If we don't have, you know, instead of 3 hours, it's going to be 6 hours if we have only 1 vehicle. So, you know, for those people that are going to complain and say, oh my God, my roads are, you know, not shoveled and not maintained properly now. Well, this is exactly one of the reasons why, potentially. So I think we got to really be really strong about how we communicate this next year. As again, maybe people didn't realize it's gonna cause a safety issue possibly.
Justin?
Yeah, I absolutely agree that we need to put it back on the ballot next year. One of the things to keep in mind is since these are repaired vehicles already and we're a year away, the trade-in value we'll get for them is going to be significantly less, as would be in any case.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I had a question also, Kevin.
Please proceed.
On the in the attempt to continue to beat this dead horse a little bit, our expendable maintenance trust failure to pass that $180,000, just so we understand what that money is worth. That's the equivalent of 2 new police officers or 2 firefighters. So if we wanted to recoup that, that would be one way to do that. I'm certainly not advocating that, but I'm just want to put it in perspective that's the impact of the budget. I remain convinced, Kevin, that the townspeople really don't want us to build $1 million facilities and then refuse to maintain them. I think that is certainly not the wish of the voters, and I think the lack of understanding of what this was for contributed to that. I think there was some emotion out there to vote no on everything, and I think that we need to take responsibility for that and do a better job marketing. I think maybe we were taking it for granted that our maintenance that the people would understand that if you're going to build multi-million-dollar facilities, they have to be maintained. Not to maintain them is what I would call foolish financial management. So one of the things I'd like to throw out there to the council to think about, which it's way too early to make a decision, but just to think about, is it something we ought to consider to stop having an expendable maintenance trust fund and to build it into the operating budget under the control of the town manager for future budgets? So that's something, Kevin, that I think that the council ought to think about, and perhaps if we were to do that, Justin, maybe you could also advise us on how that would work if we went that route.
So I believe there'd be 2 different ways. You could essentially no longer fund the expendable maintenance trust fund and put it in the budget in the operating budget, and just leave the expendable maintenance trust fund as there should we decide to go back to that way. Or what you can do is dissolve the expendable maintenance trust fund, and whatever funding is left, which won't be much after this current year, would go back into the budget in that aspect.
Right. So I just throw it out there for the council to consider, because I think we put ourselves at risk in how to maintain these facilities, the parking lots, the citizen safety as they're negotiating unshoveled walkways or whatever. I think that we put ourselves at risk by allowing this to be basically naked out there to be voted up or down. I think it ought to be built. It ought to be built into a larger budget that it doesn't add any additional tax dollars the way that it would be voted, but it would certainly not be broken out so that if the voters just decided they were going to vote no on everything because they got a new tax assessment, that it wouldn't put our expensive facilities at risk and also the safety of our citizens at risk.
Okay, so is there anything further?
Not on that issue.
Yeah, I actually have a quick question.
Then let's proceed with whatever your next item is.
Joe's got a question, I think.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, yeah, just, I guess what I was trying to point across was that if you do fold it into the budget, how does that work as far as our approval process when the invoices come? Does that just eliminate that completely?
That would make it just like all other expenditures that are currently in the operating budget.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, John, I think we could modify our purchasing policy such that we could ask the town manager to flush those particular expenditures up for our ability to view them as he came across them.
All right, we'll Justin take that as an action item, okay?
In my previous life as a municipal auditor, there were several different towns that I can't remember off the top of my head that they had different thresholds depending on what the actual expense was. Utilities had one threshold, expenditures such as maintenance had another, things of that nature. So if you'd like, I can take a look into that to work that into the policy, which would provide a little more transparency that it seems like we're looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have anything further, Kevin?
Not on this item, but I do have another update. So I wanted to give the council an update on where we are currently budgetarily, what we've been doing to take some steps to safeguard against lost revenue and potential unforeseen expenses. The first thing I would note that is most of you were informed that on March 18th, I put in a hard spending freeze on the operating budget. And so all expenditures need to be approved right now by myself and Justin, no matter the expense. We're pretty much only approving necessary expenditures at this point. And by absolutely necessary, I mean if you can get by with less rolls of paper than what you were using before, we're not going to approve more paper purchases. I mean, getting down into the weeds here. But we're really just asked all of the departments to curb spending as much as they can, and when they have to spend, to run that expense by Justin and myself. Looking at the budget reports as of where we were on Friday, which would have been April 17th. On the revenue side, we're still above where we should be at this time of the year. But I want to caution you, right now we're just over 80% of budgeted revenue that has come in. We should be at 79.78. Don't get excited by that, because last week we were running about 3 to 4% higher. Revenue's dropping off very quick. In the areas where it seems to be dropping off would be in the way of motor vehicle permits, mostly from rental car revenue, and also building and permit fees. The revenue number is skewed a little bit because we had budgeted $800,000 for the rail trail revenue. We're probably not going to see that money this fiscal year. On the flip side, we won't be making any expenditures this fiscal year either. So there was money budgeted to be spent on the rail trail for the warrant article that passed last March. So while we won't be receiving the revenue, we won't be making the expenditure. So those things more or less wash them out, but it does skew that revenue number a little bit. So that's where things currently stand on the revenue side of the ledger. On the expenditure side, despite the unforeseen increases in the fire department and the police department for overtime, we're running at about 76, 77% right now of budget, and we should be at, again, 79.78. So the spending freeze is worked thus far, and we're hoping that that delta gets wider and wider as we come toward the close of the fiscal year. It is still unclear as to what purchases will be reimbursed from FEMA. We are tracking everything related that we believe is related to the COVID outbreak, including the technology we're using right now, because we plan to submit for reimbursement of every item that we believe is related to the COVID pandemic. That being said, as I mentioned, it's still unclear as to what items will actually get reimbursed. So we're planning on not having reimbursement of anything and taking that conservative approach. And hopefully, maybe best case scenario, we get 75%. If we got anything higher than 75, it'd be pretty remarkable. But that's where we are on the revenue and expenditure side. Staffing levels, I'll mention, we have had some layoffs. Obviously, the crossing guards have all been laid off because school is not in session. There's some part-time positions in the library whose hours have been cut. The other thing I would mention, so Town Hall, as you know, has been operational even though we closed the building. Staffing is at about, as far as remote working versus working in the building, I'd say it's about 70-30, where we still have about 70% of staff that is in regularly and 30% mostly working from home. The level of work, the volume of work really hasn't decreased that much. There's still activity going on in every department. We're having every department submit to us weekly reports of the work that's getting done in those departments, from everyone from the department secretary all the way to the department head, so that we have a way of accountability while we're closed at the physical building. And we've also been having staff meetings periodically. We'll be having another one this week virtually. So the level of activity in Town Hall in certain areas has fallen off, but in other areas we've seen an uptick because the online services have presented new challenges, good challenges. We're glad people are utilizing the online services, but in some ways it's having to follow up, particularly in the building department when people submit things online, submit permits online. It's just then the nature of calling the person, going through the plans they submitted, and so on. But there's still inspections taking place on site of different development projects. That's happening in the building department, that's happening in the engineering department, and also the assessing department is still doing outside home inspections. We're just not doing inside, in-home inspections at this time. Cash flow is not an issue yet, but could become an issue as we get to the time when property taxes are due to be remitted to us, which is typically the end of June, beginning of July. At this time, it is my understanding there's no plans to defer property tax payments. That's not something that the town could do anyway. It is something that the state could do through the Department of Revenue. But my understanding is the state does not plan on deferring property tax payments. However, what the governor's executive order has offered is the ability for towns to defer interest and penalty charges for anyone that has late payments up to 90 days after the taxes are due. That is something that I believe the town should adopt and should do that according to the governor's executive order. But I would need a consensus of the council to go ahead and put that into place. And again, it doesn't defer the property tax payment, but it would defer interest and penalties up to 90 days if they paid late. And what I would say is if you have the ability to pay your property taxes when they come due, please do so. We want to make sure that our first responders continue to get paid. But for those that need that extra time, it would allow them to pay it later without getting a late payment penalty on that.
Justin, why don't you pull numbers for us of what we collected in interest last year?
Will do.
Mr. Chairman, I got two questions for the town manager.
Please proceed.
I'd like both chiefs, Kevin, to report, and I don't want to surprise anybody, so I think I could wait for the next council meeting. But for their safety, I'd like to make sure that they affirmatively tell us that they have enough personal protective equipment available to them as they execute their duties for their own safety. And secondly, that we have a budget to buy those additional materials if we need to. And I know that will probably be FEMA reimbursed, but that may not come for a while. So again, to your point, Kevin, it may be more of a cash flow issue than a budgetary issue. So I would just ask if the two chiefs at maybe a subsequent meeting, Mr. Chairman, could tell us about the PPE availability and that they have everything they need in order to safely conduct the responsibilities that they're charged with.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Darren as the last item of the meeting. He'll probably be able to address some of that then.
Okay, my second question, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
My second question, Kevin, was the opening of the drop-off center. I had a thought that I wanted to share with you. I know we're looking at that. My one thought was a first phase of that could be for just brush and yard waste where the monitors don't have to interact with the public, just kind of wave at them as they drive in, and they don't have to pay anything. They just dump their leaves or their brush and be on their way, and there's no issue with potential contamination between the public and the employees there. I just wanted to offer that maybe as an early phase one of opening a drop-off center, because we're at a point in the year where a lot of people are doing their winter cleanup and I know they can always use the dairy drop-off center, but I think it'd be nice to get ours open, at least for leaves and brush and so forth. That's it.
Yeah, Janos is working on a plan with Paul and Bob Carey. The plan is to open it up in the very near future. And I know I appreciate your consideration in your suggestion. I know they're looking at a bunch of different options that'll keep the employees safe, but also allows everyone who has sufficiently cleaned out their house in the last month to finally get rid of it.
Okay, that's great.
John?
Hey, John, I have something.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, in our last meeting, Deb Paul brought up concerns about the town common and the work that's been performed at the town common and the quality of work. Could we have clarification on exactly where we are, what monies have been spent, and like most public jobs, there's usually a punch list, and the contractor usually will come back and fix work that needs to be. So could we have some clarification for the taxpayers that are concerned about that?
Sure. And Jim, just before I get to that, I just want to finish up just the last couple of items on the current budget and how it's being affected by COVID. And just so everyone's clear, there's a couple of projects that have also pushed off for the time being. One is the expansion onto Town Hall and the related parking lot repairs. Those both passed under separate warrant articles, so the money is available. Those monies cannot be deferred anywhere else. So I don't want anyone to think, well, if we don't use them here, we can use them here. They can only be used for those projects. That being said, I have asked Steve Cotton to hold off at least until July 1 for any construction to begin on those particular projects until we have a little bit more certainty about where the economy is at that point. Just related to that, as we look to fiscal year 2021, which starts July 1st, when we go to set the tax rate in October, that's when we do our revised revenue estimates. It's also when we'll find out what we're going to get from the state in terms of rooms and meals tax and highway block grant. I am going to expect that our revenues are going to be significantly less than what was budgeted for 2021. And so I've already made it clear that whatever we have to reduce our revenue, budgeted revenue line by, we're also going to make corresponding reductions in our expenditure line. Now, the way that has to be done is you can't just make those cuts because it's already been appropriated and approved by the voters. So the way it would have to be done is would have to identify how much money in reductions we're going to do, essentially use fund balance at that time to cover those reductions. But then during the budget season, we just don't spend that money. So it goes back into fund balance at the end of the year. That, unfortunately, that's the only mechanism and way you can do that. But what that still results in is corresponding reduction in the expenditures for what we had to reduce in revenues. If we don't do that, what happens is there's a property tax increase, because if your revenues go down and you don't reduce your expenditures, it gets made up in property taxes. It's going to be my recommendation. We don't do that. So again, that's coming. That's a train coming down the track. We don't have to deal with it yet, but that's a coming attraction for as we move into the fall.
And you guys are in active conversations with the school, and they understand this, and they understand that they're going to be looking at their dollars as well, right?
Correct.
Okay.
On the issue, Jim, of the town common, and so as it was explained last fall, all of the major construction work was completed over there. That includes the drainage pipes that were put into the ground, includes your catch basins. All of the major reshaping was done. It was always planned to go back in the springtime, and you had to establish the grass at that time before the winter came, which is why it was loam and seeded. Would go back in the springtime, and that's when the last of it would be done, which includes some more grading work, the curbing on the side of Pillsbury Road, so that the water isn't all draining onto the common, and some under drains. And so I saw some snarky remarks on social media about using my words against me, saying it was complete. It was complete. Phase 1 was complete. All the major work was complete. And now we're going and doing what's left in the spring. Again, all under the same contract and same monies.
Yeah, and I think it should be, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the contractor is responsible to go back and repack around those culverts at no additional cost. That's all part of the contract. Am I correct?
Correct. You have to establish it first to see how it drains, and then you fix the areas of grading in the under drains where you see where it's ponding.
Okay, thank you.
For anybody who's ever dug a hole in New Hampshire, we all know that it never turns out well.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, may I ask Mr. Smith a question, please?
Absolutely, please proceed.
So, Kevin, on the time line on the town common, if we are allowed to have events again on the common, will this be affected by the construction that would be going on, the seeding, the grass stuff? I thought phase 2 supposedly was going to be electrical and sprinkler system, but anyway, I just wondered how that would affect any summer activities if we may have them.
Sure. I think Janos is on the line, and if he's available, if he can speak, I'm going to ask him to speak. But I've drilled it into Janos that I want to make sure this is ready to go for the concert on the Common season as well as Old Home Day. And so Janos has told me many times that it will be available and ready for that. But at the same time, I know the contractor was reluctant to get out there recently because of all the rains we had and just how muddy and soft the ground was out there. But I do know Janos spoke to the contractor again, I think today. And Janos, if you're on the line, do you want to just add any more to that? Yanni?
I think something must be going on with his computer audio. He's not able to speak.
Oh, that's right. We tried him earlier. So, so Deb, the short of it is, yes, I'm holding Janos's feet to the fire to make sure that the Common's ready in time for those summer activities that we, knock on wood, hope we're going to see happen.
So, and also,
and one thing to, I was just going to say one more thing to let you all know. The Sunshine Soup Kitchen will now be open again. And that's a little bit of a glimmer of maybe getting back to a little bit of reality.
Oh,
back
that's
to the
great.
way it was. It is good. People need to eat.
So just one other thing with regards to the Common, we're operating under the Master Services Agreement with Continental that we put out in 2017. And that's how we do our bidding for paving and for sewer repair and all that. That's a rotating 5-year Master Services Agreement.
Yeah, so you're right. We have a contract with Continental. That contract went out to bid in 17. It'll be going out to bid after July 1 this year because it's up June 30, 2022. And Janos did just text me, even though he can't talk on the phone, he said he will have it ready for the summer.
Well, let's see what the governor says about events and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, anything further, Kevin?
That's all I have.
Lisa, anything from you?
Just very quickly, with regard to summer event, which would be Old Home Day. We have not had an Old Home Day meeting given the current situation. However, with Kirby's help behind the scenes, we've been able to take care of some of the administrative details so that we are acting as if we're going forward, sending out booth forms and that sort of thing, parade invites, etc. So we hope to reconvene soon, and we'll just have to see what happens again with the governor's order. Same thing with regard to Leadership Londonderry. Unfortunately, the April meeting was set to take place at Manchester Airport, which obviously could not go forward. So we will figure out a plan for wrapping up Leadership Londonderry going forward as well. There was only supposed to be one more meeting in April and then the graduation in May. So I'll keep you posted once we're able to figure out when we can gather again.
Great. Joe, you had something?
Yeah. So I actually had something for Kevin before we moved over to Assistant Town Manager. I wanted to ask about the overtime. I'm just assuming that the overtime in police and fire is due to sick calls. Is that why did you say it's heading in the wrong direction? It's high this time of year?
No, I'll let Darren and Bill speak to that.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to Darren as we wrap things up here. One quick thing before I go to Darren. If any of you take a ride up by the airport and you see the couple of thousand cars that are in the parking lots, on the outer parking lots, those are all the rental cars. For those of you who don't know, those cars are all registered in Londonderry, which equates to 7-figure dollars that we
Revenue.
collect from them every year in revenue. We don't know what they're going to do as far as rotating their cars out and everything. And we collect between $1 million and $2 million a year from the rental car companies, just so all are aware.
Last 2.1.
What?
Last year it was 2.1 from two of them, from Enterprise and from Hertz.
So there you go. So we're going to have to watch them closely and see how the travel picks back up, because those lots are completely full right now. So Darren, I'll turn to you as we, and to Chief Hart as we conclude our meeting here, and you can give us an update on where we are with COVID-19 and what's going on in the community, and tell us what we need to know.
Okay, very good. To answer Councilor Dolan's questions about PPE, both myself and the police department are in very good shape right now, I'd say for the short to medium term. I know myself, we're doing the same thing as the state is, and outsourcing to see what we can find. We've had orders out there now since January. The state has been very generous in reference to supplying us with PPE if needed. As you've seen over on the news over the last couple of weeks, that we've been getting these big planes in up at the airport. I just picked up a shipment today of N95 masks, surgical gowns, and the face shields. And I think if everybody that's orders the appropriate amount and not be overzealous on what they're asking for, there's going to be enough to go around to get us through this. So again, both myself and the PD are right now are in good shape with that. In reference to the question on overtime, when this first came about, starting I think on March 14th, what I did as the fire chief, in order to try and eliminate the contamination of as many crew or as less crews as possible, I put two extra individuals at each substation. What that allowed me to do is have a 3-man engine company along with a 2-man ambulance. We put protocols in place and directives and operational guidelines that when we had a response, that the ambulance would arrive on scene, the medic would go in and assess the situation in full PPE, and then summons the rest of the crew in reference to what was needed, whether it's going to be full PPE, whether it's going to be just a standard call. And this has been changing on a daily basis. I mean, now all the crews, no matter what type of medical call is, we had a motor vehicle accident down on, a pretty severe motor vehicle accident on 102 this morning. You're going to see all the crews now wearing at least a surgical mask. They're going to be wearing eye gear, and obviously their protective gloves. I'm proud to say that right now we have had no individuals quarantined from the fire department, job related. We've had a couple that have been exposed on the outside that have had to self-quarantine themselves on the outside. But as of right now, I think we are trying our hardest to put all the policies in place and get the best PPE and the best information we can possibly can in order to get these guys through this and not be exposed. That is my goal here, and I vow to do so. In saying that, like the town manager had mentioned, the funding for this overtime is not written in stone as of yet. I've gotten several reports. I've called the fire marshals, I've called the state EOC, I've talked to FEMA. So they're not saying exactly how they're going to pay for this or what portion of this funding is going to be available. So in saying that, not to put the budget in complete upside downness, I went back to this weekend. As of Sunday, we dropped from hiring the 4 individuals, so two at each substation. I went back to the 3-man crew up at our North Station, and now I have the 5-man crew at Station 2. So that ambulance down the south end now is going to be protecting the south end of town along with the central district. Again, trying to limit the exposure of the people that are going in. We're basically what FEMA was saying is we'll reimburse you for the COVID-19 calls that you're going on. Well, I can honestly say that every call that we are going on right now is a COVID-19 call because we do not know. We are taking all the proper precautions and taking the appropriate measures to make sure, again, that our crew stays safe. So every call that we go on, it doesn't matter whether it's somebody with a sprained finger in a grocery store, every call that we're going on is a COVID-19 call. So that's basically the fire department in a nutshell. Everybody is doing well. Everybody is healthy. Our PPE is good. Our staffing is down a little bit from last week, and I'm going to keep monitoring that as we go forward, because if I can put it back to the way that I had it 2 weeks ago, I would like to do so, because I just think it limits the exposure to all the individuals that are out there. Reference to the community, our numbers have fluctuated over the last 3 weeks. I am glad to say that this week thus far, and again over the weekend, our numbers for Londonderry have gone down. I hope that continues. I've been trying to do these public address every Thursdays, and just trying to alert the people to stay away from large gatherings, practice your social distancing. What we're seeing is, like I mentioned in the last public address, I'm seeing different clusters throughout town, neighborhoods, neighbors. I got an email this morning saying, is it airborne? Well, that's not what I was trying to put out there. But again, what I was trying to put out there is people are not practicing the social distancing and not doing what has been asked of them through not only the town, but from the governor. The governor has put this stay-at-home order in place for a reason. If you look at Londonderry, not Londonderry's, but if you look at the state of New Hampshire's curve compared to every other New England state around us, we are doing very well. We are doing very well for a reason. We're doing very well because people are trying to follow the rules, and the people that are making these decisions are trying to make the right decisions in order to get us through this. So again, practice the social distancing, good hand hygiene, stay away from large crowds. And what I'm telling everybody now is, when you're going into a public place or a grocery store, the supermarket, wherever you're going to, wear a mask. I went out this weekend with my wife, and I can say 2 weeks ago, when you put on a mask, people would look at you like, what the hell are you doing? Well, now if you go into a place and you're not wearing a mask, people are looking at you, what the hell are you doing? So I think the word is getting out there, and I think that's what's going to make the difference. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but as of right now, we're just kind of got our feet to the grindstone, and then we're just marching ahead, and hopefully this will come to an end and we can get back to normal, or what is going to be our new normal sometime soon.
Thank you, Darren.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question.
Please go ahead.
So, Darren, I guess a public service announcement. I saw one of your videos as well, talking about if you do have COVID-19 positive, that you would like people to let you know that. And have you been getting many of those, or equal to what we know we have in the town?
I'd say when I first made mention of that, Joe, 2 weeks ago, I did. I got 2 of them right off the bat. Since then, I have not. And again, it's on our website. It's under special medical information. They can go there. They can send that to me via email. What we're finding now is we had a confirmed test on Saturday night into Sunday morning that, unfortunately, we're not getting the information back from the state before the individuals are getting this information back. So you might know that you've been tested positive, but prior to me getting that information could be anywhere from 6 to 9 days. So this gentleman had known that he had tested positive. We took the right protocols, just asking the questions through our dispatch center, what his symptoms were and stuff like that. So we knew going into it that we were going to practice full protocol going in there. But again, I won't get that address on my list now probably until maybe the end of the week, the first of next week. That's how far it's lagging behind. So I ask people that if you're self-quarantined, if you're experiencing any symptoms, if you've been tested, or if you're awaiting tests, either call me or go onto the website, fill out that form and send it to me via email. And that way I can put it in our dispatch queue, and it just alerts everybody, both me and the PD, because we share information amongst ourselves. And just trying to keep our crew safe. That's all.
Excellent. Thank you.
Anything further? Anything? Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, Chief, I just need some clarification. You had mentioned that we have 3 firefighters on each engine, and we have 2 EMS in each station right now?
What I was doing, Jim, is, our normal staffing is 3 at each substation, and then 4 or 5 at central, depending on, what that day's staffing is.
Okay.
When this came about, again, trying to segregate people, because right now all the crews that were at central, so I had 5 to 6 guys at central. They were sharing bedrooms or sharing office space that are used as bedrooms. So I wanted to separate them so nobody was sharing the same space while sleeping. So what we decided to do is I decided to, because we have the spare bedrooms at both substations, for the future expansion of them. I put the 3-man engine crews that stayed there and then a 2-man ambulance crew that was there. So each station had 5 guys, and then I could run an ambulance and an engine out of each station. And then central was 3 that could run either the rescue, the tower, whatever other piece of apparatus was there. So that's what I was doing from like the 13th of March or the 14th of March up until this past Sunday. But again, not knowing the status of how this reimbursement funding is going to take place. My overtime funds are definitely getting low, very low now. So I cut that back and went to just the 5 down at Station 2. I put Station 1 back at a 3-man crew. So again, now that 3-man crew, there's going to be 3 guys on that ambulance instead of the 2 guys going on that ambulance. I'm going to lose 3 guys at once instead of 2 guys at once. So it's unfortunately it's a disadvantage for what we're trying to do at this time. I'm hoping that the curve stays low. If we find that we're going to peak at some point in time, then we're just going to have to readdress that and bite the bullet later. That's all.
All right, okay. So if people call from the north side for an ambulance, and the north side ambulance goes out, and then there's a call on the south side, I assume in trying to protect as many people as we can, there'll be a delay in response time, somewhat of a delay in response time for the call down on the south side if we have 2 calls going on at once, which happens quite frequently. Just so I understand it. And
yeah, we
people,
have our simultaneous calls are almost 60% right now.
Got it.
So if the north end gets a medical call, all 3 of those guys will go out on that ambulance and handle that medical call. If the south end gets a call, no, I'll still have the south end crew down there with the 5 guys. So 3 on an engine and 2 on an ambulance. And that's what I was doing at each substation.
Got it. Okay.
Now I'm only doing it down the south end. And what I'm trying to do with that south end ambulance is now it's protecting not only the southern end of town, but it's protecting up until probably Shasta Drive, so the central district as well. Again, trying to limit the exposure with just 2 guys versus 5 guys or 6 guys or whatever the case may be.
Understood. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anything further for Darren? Bill, anything from the police?
I have a question.
Oh, please proceed.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to know how you guys are handling the pop-up parties where people are showing up in a parking lot, opening up their hatches, and getting together. It's a kid thing. I was just curious as to how we're handling that, if it's okay, not okay. And the other thing is, I guess it's for Kevin or Amy or Justin. I'd like to know where people can see a copy of that master service agreement. So those are my last 2 questions.
I'm going to go first.
Go ahead, Darren.
So Deb, in reference to the mass gatherings, I definitely discourage it. I was made aware of some, I think a week or so ago, that there was a bunch of teachers that were down on Crosby Lane, sitting in front of the old Grey Goose that kind of lined up their vehicles there. So unfortunately, they didn't approve it prior to, or didn't ask for any opinions prior to. So I went down and spoke with them, kind of laid out a few stipulations. It was too late, at that point in time, but at least they tried to adhere to what I was trying to tell them. But the kids were going to be driving by in a matter of 15 minutes by the time I got down there. I can say that people that are planning things, I've had a lot of calls in reference to how to do so, and looking for opinions on how to handle these situations. So far that's been good. We've gone to a lot of drive-by birthday parties with the fire trucks. We've gone to a lot of drive-by different things with the fire trucks, and that's what we're doing in today's day and age right now. So again, if anybody's got
those drive-by birthdays,
go ahead.
They really are. Kids enjoy them immensely. I've now gone to at least 4. You guys do a good job with that. But I noticed, like in the movie theater parking lot, a bunch of kids will pull over like random, and they'll just open up, make a circle and open up the backs of their cars or sides of their cars and start communicating, yelling across the parking lot to each other. And that's like a a new thing. And
Well, as long as they're 6
noticing
feet
it.
apart, I'm totally fine with that. As long as they stay 6 feet apart from each other, you know. The droplets that they're talking about that are contagious are, you know, they say they can fall to the ground within 6
Okay.
feet, unless you're sneezing or something like that. So I get it. You know, people are getting bored. People are going stir crazy right now. So and
Amen.
missing that interaction with people. So if they practice it safely and practice the social distancing, I get it. You know.
Okay, thank you. And
Welcome.
so where can we get the master service agreement?
With regard to the agreement, it's a contract with Continental, and I just want to be clear, it's not called a master services agreement. It's an agreement they have for our roadway paving work. But in the course of doing our roadway paving work, they do things like lay sewer pipe, they lay water pipe, they do catch basins, and so it's the kind of work that they do. So that's the contract that went out to bid again in, I believe, 2017 it was. And if anyone wants to see a copy of that contract, they can see that in the Department of Public Works. If they want to contact the Department of Public Works, they can send them a copy of that contract.
Bill, do you have anything for us?
A lot of the same things that the chief has talked about. We implemented some protocols to sort of separate people out shift to shift right out of the gate back in mid-March. We've kept a roster of individual use of cars so that different than we've ever done before. Only certain officers use certain numbered cars. We've had a number of quarantines, only a couple from presumptive COVID patients, mostly from family situations that we've implemented the algorithms recommended by the state. Overtime is in generally very good shape. Our overtime is driven by vacation, by a desire to accommodate minimum staffing. And since we moved the SROs over and moved our ancillary officers into patrol, we've really been able to hold tight to minimum staffing. Much like Darren, we'll see what gets reimbursed. We treat every call as a COVID call, every person as a potentially presumptive COVID individual, in the hopes to keep our first responders able to return to work immediately. So things are in good shape from the police department perspective. I have a great team and I'm very grateful for it. And whenever I don't know what I'm doing, which is probably 80% of the time, I call Darren and he helps me out.
Okay, well, thank you. I can tell you, I speak to Darren, I think, every day. And I speak to somebody, if not Bill, I speak to somebody in the police department every day. And everybody's really, keeping a good attitude and reminding the public. These are the things we need to do right now.
Absolutely.
So is there anything further from the council this evening?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment, John, and support what you said earlier. Anyone that would like that contract, please call the DPW for a copy. 91As do cost the taxpayers money. So I'm sure that the DPW would be more than happy to accommodate you.
Yeah. And
Mr.
for those
Chairman,
of
I
you
have
who
a
don't,
comment too.
please proceed.
I have a comment about Kirby. Kirby, could you wave to the camera so people on TV knows who you are? I just want to give a shout out to Kirby for some of the work that she's done behind the scenes and collecting calls for people who need food or have emergencies and things like that. She's kind of an unsung hero in this whole process. So I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that and thank you, Kirby, from the council.
Great job, Curbs.
Not a problem.
Yes, thank you, Curb.
Okay, so a couple of quick housekeeping items and then we'll get on our way here. Phone calls to town hall. If people are making phone calls to town hall, the town hall is closed to the public and we are short-staffed. They're collecting voicemails and returning those calls as fast as possible. So please be patient as they return those calls. I want to take a little time here to thank Lisa and the IT department and all those that were able to all those who participated in putting this meeting together and and pulling this off very nicely after our first meeting didn't go so well, but appreciate the hard work. One other thing so the master services agreement is something I call something when I use a contractor at work. So I apologize for that. For those of you who don't know, what happens is when we have a sewer force main leak and break in the middle of the winter. And if you've ever been to one of these sites, it never breaks during the sunny day, on the warmest day of winter. It always breaks on the coldest day, and it usually breaks at night. And for any of you who've been out there, it's Continental who goes out there in the middle of the night, digs up the road and crawls down in that hole and makes sure that everybody is going to have their sewers working that same day. And Janos and his crew have the trucks coming from the who pump out your leach field and everything else, and they keep those stations running the entire time, so you don't have sewage back up in your home. These type of agreements are critical because you need to know that they're going to show up when these things happen. So yeah, please do look at the agreement. Continental has been a great partner, and they turn up when we absolutely need them, and we never wait.
And
So,
John, I would just add to that too, that contract was also reviewed by our auditors for the last audit, the fiscal year 19 audit. And they obviously didn't raise any issues with that contract. And any notion that the purchasing policy wasn't followed with regard to the town common and Continental doing work is simply not true. Again, Continental is a partner with us. They have a contract for paving, but also laying pipe in the projects that need that to be done. They were the lowest bidder when we did that contract. And as you said, they've been a great partner and a local vendor. Our purchasing policy talks about using local vendors. They're a local vendor, been a great partner for years. And I have no doubt when the common project is finished, it'll be up to the great work that they always do.
All right, with that said, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Tom Dolan, second from Jim Butler. All those in favor, please roll call. Aye, John
Tom
Farrell.
Dolan, aye.
Joe Green.
Aye, Jim Butler.
Aye, Deb Paul.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The next meeting will be on March 4th at 7 p.m. Oh, excuse me, May 4th at 7 p.m. Hopefully, we'll do a social distancing meeting live. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Thank you. Good night.
Aye.
Night.
May the 4th be with you.